Now, we just want to bring you some breaking news now on BBC News. It's coming out of Sri Lanka. We're getting reports that there have been blasts. They've hit two Sri Lanka churches. Now, it is Easter Mass being held there. It's, of course, Easter weekend. We're hearing that blasts have hit two Sri Lanka churches. That's coming through on AFP, and we're also getting reports of explosions that have hit two Colombo hotels in Sri Lanka. So explosions hit Sri Lanka churches, and we're hearing explosions at two Colombo hotels as well. That's that report coming through on Reuters as well. Of course, keep you across all of that breaking news here on BBC News as it develops. But right now, let's get some weather with Nick Miller. Welcome to BBC News. I'm Regin Ahmed. Our top stories. Sri Lanka security forces say 15 bodies and bomb-making equipment have been recovered in the hunt for those behind the Easter Sunday attacks. A race against time. President Trump urges people to get vaccinated after measles outbreaks forced two universities to quarantine staff and students.
They have to get the shot. The vaccinations are so important. This is really going around now. They have to get their shots.
Spain prepares to choose its next government. Protesters say the Vox Party's divisive message threatens to set the country back. And a new exhibition opens exploring the life and work of maverick cinematic genius Stanley Kubrick. Hello and welcome. Let's just bring you some breaking news now coming out of Sri Lanka in the last hour. Now, at least 15 bodies have been found by the security forces after a battle with suspected Islamist militants in the east of the country. 6 of the dead are thought to be children. Now, the clashes did take place on Friday night as Sri Lanka is trying to track down those linked to the Easter suicide attacks on churches and hotels in Colombo and Batticaloa that claimed more than 250 lives. So just a reminder of that breaking news. We're hearing that Sri Lanka's security forces have fought a gun battle with Islamist militants, suspected Islamist militants in the east of the country, and those clashes took place on Friday south of the coastal town of Batticaloa, where one of those suicide bombings took place on Easter Sunday. Now, of course, we will hope to speak to our correspondent in South Asia as soon as we can to get the latest. But let's just show you the live scene in Colombo. Of course, that investigation has been continuing right around the country in Sri Lanka as security forces try and track down any of the militants that might have been connected to those Easter Sunday attacks. 250 people killed in those attacks. This is a live scene in Colombo that you can see. You might see some military, some soldiers there patrolling the street. Obviously, there's a lot of tension in Sri Lanka. Church services have been cancelled Friday. Prayers were cancelled as well for the Muslim community. And of course, we will hope to speak to our correspondent in Sri Lanka, in Colombo, to bring us the latest on that breaking news when we get it here on BBC News. Let's just remind you of our breaking news that's been happening in the last hour and a half. At least 15 bodies have been found by Sri Lankan security forces after a battle with suspected Islamist militants in the east of the country. Now, we, of course, have been hearing that the country has remained on high alert since those Easter Sunday suicide attacks on churches and hotels in Colombo and Batticaloa. But more recently, we've been hearing about that fierce gun battle with suspected Islamist militants. Now, let's get more on that from our South Asia editor and Barisan Eti Rajan, who's in Colombo for us. And Barasan, what can you tell us about that most recent gun battle and the bodies that were found?
The police conducted a search in the eastern region following a tip-off, and then they heard from some of the local people that some suspects were staying in a house which was rented very recently. And the security forces started a raid, and then the shootout started, according to the senior police officers there. And it lasted for a couple of hours last night. And I spoke to some of the residents very close to that site, and they said the gunfight, the sound of the gunfight lasted for a couple of hours. And this morning, the army took a group of journalists to go and visit the site. And from the pictures coming out of the area, we can see that many burnt out building there in that area. Now the officials are saying that they found at least 15 bodies, and 6 of them are suspected to be Islamists. Some women and children are also among the killed. This follows another raid in the same region last night, where they found more explosives and also a drone in that area. This follows a series of raids being conducted by the security forces following the Easter Sunday attack.
Given that there have been a number of raids, and we've seen this latest one as well, does it suggest that security forces are closing in on this network and understanding more about it?
They started conducting these raids following the Sunday bombings, and according to President Maithripala Sirisena, they think that there could be more than 100 supporters of the Islamic radical groups and also sympathetic to the Islamic State group here. And that's why they started conducting these searches. They say they have taken into custody more than 70 people. They've also found explosive devices in different places here in the capital, Colombo. And the raids are going on across the country in different towns. And in this eastern part of Sri Lanka, the Muslims also live in considerable numbers. And I was there a couple of days ago in one of the towns from where this radical Muslim preacher, Zahra Nashim, is coming from. And I went to his sister's house and I spoke to them. So police are conducting these raids to find those they think could be sympathetic to the radical Islamic group.
All right, Barasan Etirajan in Colombo, our South Asia editor. Thank you very much for that. And of course, we're seeing live pictures out of Colombo as security services continue to patrol the streets there. Much more on the background on this story and all of the latest news on our website, bbc.com/news. Do stay with us.